Don't you know who I am? I'm the Juggernaut, bitch!
Hello friends! For starters, I hope you had a great New Year's and holiday season. Now, I took some time off, I started a new job and I had to dog sit a very chewy Labrador puppy, so I haven't had much time to work on videos or even decide what I'm doing for my next video. I started playing some Halo Infinite multiplayer, but that was as fun as waxing your asshole with scotch tape.
Aha! So you got the scotch tape! I've been looking all over for it!
Don't worry about it, I'll give it back!
I don't want it!
I don't want it!
There was hit detection issues, loading into games and constant disconnections. So I looked at a game that's been on my Steam list for a while in Hot Lava, and that is a bit of fun but also doesn't have much substance. I checked out Ready or Not, which I'll need to come back to because that's an indie game deserving some more time to break down. But then, lo and behold, Ubisoft, who in my opinion have been releasing some pretty solid games, dropped Rainbow Six Extraction. Last year we had the standard new operator and map reworks for Rainbow Six Siege.
Pretty standard, really.
But we also had Back 4 Blood release, and what Rainbow Six Extraction tries to do is merge these two styles together. The fantastic gunplay from Rainbow Six Siege with the cooperative and horde-like mechanics of the games like Left 4 Dead. Now, a few years ago before I started this channel, there was a Rainbow Six Siege season called Operation Chimera, which introduced Lion and Finker to the game, but also introduced a limited time game mode where a mysterious infection hit a small town in New Mexico, and you and two other players would need to go in and save the day. The game mode was called Infection, and it was a hit, or at least I thought it was pretty fun, and players needed to go inside a quarantine zone, survive hordes of hostiles, identify the source of the parasite, and escape. It was a bit like a Left 4 Dead Lite for Rainbow Six Siege, and it worked as a great add-on to the game. Safe to say this game mode became pretty popular, and that gave us Rainbow Six Extraction. But is Extraction worth it, or should it have been, say, a $30 co-op expansion to Siege? Well, hopefully I'll answer that question for you. Now, even though it is a Rainbow Six game and it uses the operators from Siege, and yes, the gunplay is the same, it's not the same game and it's also kinda weird. So the way Extraction is set out is that you'll enter a map that is set into different areas and cities and you need to complete objectives. Each map is broken up into 3 different sections, and each different section is separated with airlock zones that work a little bit like safe rooms in Left 4 Dead and give players a chance to breathe. Now, each zone in the level will have different objectives and will increase in difficulty too. For example, Zone 1's objective might be take out an elite enemy target, Zone 2's objective might be rescue a scientist, and then Zone 3 might be capture a high value target. After you finish Objective 3, you can call in an extraction and leave the area, but you can also do this at any time. If you or your team have been decimated in Zone 1, or your operators are also dangerously low on health, then you can call in an extraction zone in Zone 1 and save your operator. Now, that's one mechanic I think creatively Extraction does really well. Now, each operator has 100 health like you'd expect, and anytime you take damage they'll lose health, which is pretty standard. Now, operators' health can be patched up with medkits and such, but if their health reaches 0 in a round, they'll go into a down but not out stage. From there, if you go into a down but not out again, you're not only out of the round, but your operator will be encased in a protective foam casing. Think of it like the foam airbag things in Demolition Man. Now your team can carry and escort your body to an extraction point, or you can be left behind. If your operator is left behind, you cannot use that operator until you go back to that zone and save them. It's a bit like how, say, Ripley goes into the alien hive to save Newt. So on top of a system where you can potentially lose your preferred operator out in the field, there's also a different health system. When your operator takes damage and uses a medkit, the medkit doesn't restore the health in a conventional way, but it's sort of a band-aid fix. Depending on how much damage your operator takes, when you extract from the area, your operator will need to rest and you won't be able to use them for a future mission or two. It becomes interesting if you've got a couple of operators that you swap between. If one is damaged and needs to rest and the other has been left MIA out in the field, you're forced into using an operator that you might not want to use, or also an operator that's not a high enough level. That's right, there is a leveling system here in Extraction and it has some light RPG mechanics. Everything you do in Extraction gives you experience, whether it's headshotting an enemy or shooting out a poison landmine grenade, you'll get experience. Every time you level up an operator, they'll get access to better gear or upgraded abilities. For example, when you first start using an operator, they'll only have access to one main weapon and one sidearm, but when you reach level 3 for Pulse, you'll unlock his UMP submachine gun, and when you reach level 9, you'll unlock Thermite's assault rifle for Pulse, which Pulse cannot use in Rainbow Six Siege. Another thing I'm a fan of when it comes to extraction is the enemy variants. Yes, there's the standard Canaphon enemies and enemies that explode when you shoot the glowing balls on their back and giant tanky enemies, but they're not copy and paste enemies of how Back 4 Blood actually copy and pasted enemies from Left 4 Dead and then just changed their names. There's also enemy spawn points called nests that if an enemy is alerted, the nest will continuously spew out enemies until that nest is destroyed. Some missions will require you to sneak up and plant beacons on dormant nests, and if you alert enemies, the nests will start spewing out enemies, and you'll fail that mission, and depending on your health, you might need to extract from the area or move to the airlock to go into the next area.
Come again?
Gameplay wise, well, it's Rainbow Six Siege's core gameplay mechanics. Honestly, the gameplay itself is copy and paste from 2018's Outbreak mode just extended into a full game. Each operator has their iconic gadgets and core main weapons from Siege, and yep, just like in Siege, you can adjust attachments and change your operator's cosmetics. However, while operators' gadgets are the same from Siege, they are used a little differently here. For example, in Siege, Pulse can use his detector to pick up nearby heartbeats, but here in Extraction he uses it to ping nests or find nearby scientists that need to be extracted. Lion in Siege has a flying drone that when activated will ping movement to your squad, where in Extraction it'll ping enemies within a detection field. Now if you level up and use Lion, his detection field will grow or the gadget cooldown will get smaller, allowing him to use it more frequently because Lion doesn't have a gadget limit. Throughout each level, besides objectives like take out elite targets using a knife to extract blood or something, there'll also be supplies that you can pick up and restack on. You'll find ammo, which is pretty straightforward, but then you'll find react tech, which will give you more grenades or detector sensors, basically refilling your usable equipment. There's also gadget crates that will resupply your gadgets if you're using someone like Rook or Doc, and it will also remove any cooldowns that an operator has on their gadget count, like say Finker's Boost or Lion's Scan that works on a cooldown in this game. But you will need to manage your resources and medkits with your team, as there's no guarantee that a medkit will be out in the field or stocked inside an airlock. Airlocks work like the safe rooms in Left 4 Dead, but the airlocks don't have guaranteed resources, and in some instances they're actually got enemies hiding inside them. Besides enemies and nests and the objective, each level will have both airlocks and extraction points. So whether you're on the third and final zone of a level, or you've had shit luck and your team is basically wiped out in zone 1, you can call an extraction and leave straight away. Extraction points have a slab table to place down any foamed operator or scientist, while the iPad at the end of that table will call in the extraction. There's also black goo around the map that covers the floor, and enemies will bleed this out when they die. The goo looks a little bit like the black sludge from Resident Evil 7 or a symbiote from Spider-Man, and it will slow allies walking or running through it, and as you guessed, it won't affect enemies. Thankfully though, you can shoot the goo, creating a path so you can just walk through it or sprint through it. It does come in handy if you're extracting a captured operator or a scientist and your team is clearing a path for you so you're not slowed down. There's also alien spores and landmines that will either damage you or flat up blind you. When you approach spores, they'll attach themselves to you a bit like the Flood in Halo, and after a short period of time they'll explode, blind you, and have your character coughing. Now these spores can only be removed if an ally melees them off you or shoots them off you. That's it. So if you're playing solo, good luck. The red alien mines, if you get too close to them, will flat up blind you, and enemy grunts can honestly fuck you up really quick. Sure, they're easy enough to shoot and take down, but they're basically a symbiote version of Edward Scissorhands, and they deal some proper damage. But how is Extraction, or what are my personal thoughts on it? And well, it's fine. It's not a great game, it's not a crap game, but it is fun, I'll give it that. Now it has been 4 years since Operation Chimera and the Outbreak mode released, and while the game modes in Extraction are a bit of fun, especially when playing with friends, after a couple of hours I found myself getting a bit bored and taking a break and then coming back to it later in the day. But this game itself feels like it could have been a $30 expansion to Rainbow Six Siege or $50, and it would include both Siege and Extraction. There isn't much substance in Extraction currently, at least in my opinion. Sure, the missions and enemy spawns are randomized, but after a few hours of gameplay you've basically got a grasp on the whole game. If Extraction had some other game modes to it, I think it could have been pretty cool. Ready or Not is based around a SWAT team rescuing hostages and arresting terrorists and using non-lethal weapons, and Ready or Not feels like an old school Rainbow Six game. If this style or game mode was in Extraction, it would be kinda cool. It'd be something different to play within this game. Now, I've got some mates that don't like zombies or horde shooters, and as soon as they booted this game up, they walked into it as if it was a movie that they knew they were going to hate immediately, and they didn't even give Extraction a chance, and I think that's a factor to take with this game. Now, before you say, well, just play Terrorist Hunt if you want that Ready or Not style gameplay, yeah, sure, T-Hunt is fun, but you can't arrest or use non-lethal force or instruct enemies to drop their weapons and put their hands on their heads, say like you can in Ready or Not. If you're wanting to play Extraction, it's best to play with Siege friends or fans, or Back 4 Blood or Left 4 Dead style fans, but mind you, this can be said about really any game. If you're not a racing fan, don't play racing games. Another problem, or just a what the fuck moment I sort of had with this game, is the cosmetics. Now, obviously, Extraction is Siege. It uses the same operators, weapons, gunplay, destructible environments and such, but if you're a Siege player, your cosmetics will not transfer from Siege into Extraction. There are some great skins, like the Leon Kennedy skin for Lion would work pretty damn great in this game, right? But no, if you want some unique skins for Extraction, you'll need to unlock them or buy them in the game. Personally, I'm not a fan of this, and I love playing Siege, and I've got a few skins that I like to rock, but not being able to port your own skins over from Siege into Extraction seems like a strange to poor decision. Finally, while the game mode itself might be fun when playing with friends, playing with solo or with randoms is pretty boring. Imagine playing Overwatch solo or with randoms, and if you're not communicating with your team and picking loadouts or operators to complement each other, then it can get pretty annoying. For example, Extraction is made for coordination, but also 100% necessary to have weapons with silencers. And for people who play Siege, you might find it weird using silencers on everything. But if you or someone in your team is running around with a shotgun and just shooting everything, you're gonna alert enemies and the nests in the area, and you're gonna get swarmed and even fail some objectives because you've alerted nests, or if you're really unlucky, your entire team will wipe and you'll lose your operator to that level. So do I recommend Extraction? Well, for starters, it's better than Back 4 Blood, so if you like these survival horror shooters, then yeah, sure, you'll probably like this. If you're a Siege fan and play with a crew of mates that all play Siege, then yeah, you'll probably like this too. But it doesn't feel like a Rainbow Six game, if that makes sense. It could have been a sweet new IP for Ubisoft or for a new Tom Clancy game. It could have been a game that brings together and incorporates multiple Tom Clancy titles. The yellow hazmat style of the Airlocks reminds me a lot of The Division. We've got Sam Fisher in Siege, and this could have been a way to incorporate Rainbow Six and The Division and Ghost Recon and Splinter Cell and cross them over into one game. And for anyone unaware, and some people do seem to be unaware of this, but this channel is all my personal opinions and thoughts. But anyway, back to the earlier question, do I recommend Extraction? It's yes and no at the same time. It all depends on what you personally like and if you've got like-minded friends. Now, thankfully, Extraction is coming to Xbox and PC Game Pass on day one and is 100% crossplay, and the crossplay is completely seamless. So if you like horde shooters and you like Rainbow Six Siege, then yeah, you'll like this and I recommend it. But if you don't like Siege for whatever reason and you're not a horde shooter person, then you won't overly enjoy it, but that doesn't mean you can't check this out thanks to Game Pass.